Everybody, this is Craig Tanner for the Mindful Eye and the Great Photo Finish video tutorial series. This is part 2 of the 2-part Great Photo Finish video tutorial. You're definitely going to want to watch part 1 to get the most out of this video. I'm just going to start right where I left off in this portrait with Guitar Bob. The next thing that I did after darkening the lower left corner is I started to move to increase the contrast. Smoke flowing in this area around Guitar Bob's face and then increasing the contrast of the face itself. I use levels to do that. Just increased the contrast by bringing in the white and black point and largely bringing in the white point and then painting on the mask to apply it locally. This first layer, if I option click on the mask, you're going to see that I did quite a bit of work on this layer. You see me dramatically outlining parts of the hat and the feather on the hat, and then you're seeing me increasing contrast and lightening around the face and on the face itself and the smoke and the image. There's the before and there is the after. One more time, before and after. So you're starting to get more of a sense of this kind of movement that I want to create in the image. I then came in and just on the face itself really sort of increased this effect of the Rembrandt lightings on this face. And there's the before and there is the after. I did this using levels, and then this is another one of these layers where I thought I liked that but I want more of it, so I just duplicated it, and there's the duplication. Let me go ahead and highlight the layer, and you can see that I backed off of that duplication by about half. I brought the opacity in that layer down to 45%. So here's the before and here is the after with those two layers. A lot of times when I'm working on an image, I start changing some things, and then when I get to here where I've made quite a few changes, then it prompts me to want to darken even more, maybe in some areas that I've already darkened, or lighten more, because all these relationships, all these elements, all these different things that balance each other are changing. So when I got to this point, I decided to darken even more. In some places where I had darkened, I came back in and darkened one place that I had lightened. Felt like it wasn't working now that there was so much bright over here, and I'm just sort of feeling my way to these changes. This layer right here is the first editorial change in the image, and then we're going to make a big one at the end of this video tutorial. I had another frame. The tip of the cigarette was glowing orange, and this one it wasn't, and I just went to that frame and I took out the smallest tip of the cigarette and then brought that into this shot. So you're essentially going to see the tip of the cigarette turned on here. It's just going to make that flow of energy again that I'm trying to create moving into the face even more dramatic. So here's the before, here's the after. The before and after. I could have just made this up probably with information that I have in the file, but this is one reason why I never at the level of camera or capture throw anything away, particularly when I'm shooting portraits where I am willing to do some compositing and think more like an illustrator. The frame where the tip of the cigarette was glowing, I really didn't like much of anything else, the smoke or the expression or anything, but I was able to use that part instead of having to just try to make this up inside of Photoshop. Let me talk for a second about sepia toning. And one of the challenges if you're trying to push towards style and have a body of work that's congruent is there's so many different ways to do things in Photoshop. For instance, all different kinds of ways to convert to black and white within Photoshop itself, and then all these plug-in programs. It can leave you with a jumbled mess when it comes to your monochrome shots. If you're using, let's say, Nick one day and then Photoshop another day and alien skin another day and somebody's actions another day and then your own eye the next day, it can really start to, in a body of monochrome work, pull the viewer in ways where they probably shouldn't be pulled. In the past, don't want to sound too old school, but 15 years ago you would be dealing with this because most photographers would have a black and white film or a few films that they worked with all the time. So when you're converting to black and white or sepia toning, you may want to come up with your own action. So this will be consistent, and that's what I've done here. I've run an action. If we go to actions, down here, Craig's actions, first one is sepia, and this is a very, very simple action. Essentially all that's happening here when it gets played is that it is creating a hue adjustment layer that I'll show to you that just has this specific hue, 34, and this amount of saturation, 9, and it's colorizing. So that box is checked. So when I hit sepia, it's the same type of sepia every time because of the action. I could also remember these numbers, but this is one of these things that's great when it comes to making your workflow more efficient with actions. So here's the sepia tone. Part of the reason why I'm doing the sepia up here near the top of the stack is that this is still a color file. That's why I'm able to check colorize and something actually happens. And we all know that color is dependent on value. Put the sepia down at the bottom of the stack, start dramatically darkening and lightening in some areas. I won't have consistent sepia tone all the way through, so a lot of times this is something I do near the end. You see I've created a couple of levels adjustments above this, and that's true a lot of times too, because once I go to sepia, you can see how much the shadows open up. And the yellow and the amber that is now at play is having an effect on how the eye moves. So much of the time once I go to sepia, I want to increase the contrast quite a bit. But I'm going to make these changes on these layers in luminosity mode, so in theory I'm not going to affect the color of that sepia toning. And I dramatically increase contrast here. So there is one move and there is another move. This is where things get really dramatic here, right in these last two steps. Then we need to talk about the rescaling, and let's do that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this file and I am going to flatten it. So I'm just going to flatten the image, and I'm going to come over here and I'll show you quickly the gist of what happened. I created more canvas for myself and then made a selection of the left hand side of the shot and scaled that out to fill in the blank canvas. I then made a selection over here and scaled that part in to foreshorten the back of the head, not a very important area of the image. And the combination of those two moves really ends up giving more of a leading line of the smoke, and it puts Bob's face not exactly in the middle of this almost cinematic crop here, pushing close to 2:1. It's just changed the way energy flows in this image to mine in a way that's a lot more pleasing. I've used rescaling to do that. Let's just go here. I'm not going to do it exactly the same way again, but I'll get close. Let me make the image smaller so we have room to extend the canvas. I'm just going to go to Image, Canvas Size, and I'm going to click this box right here so that the change happens to the left, and I'm just going to give myself more canvas over there. And background here, extension color is going to be white. And there it is. From here, I'm just going to go to the Marquee tool and make a rough selection like this of the smoke out in front of Bob, and Command J on a Mac, Control J on a PC, then Edit, Transform, Scale to scale that out to the edge of the canvas. And I may have extended the canvas a little bit further than I did before. Like I said, it's not going to be exactly the same. I did this by feel the first time around. One neat thing about all this being out of focus and being what it is, an out of focus wall and some bricks that are far away and smoke, is that we can rescale this quite a bit and not create a distraction, because there's something with perspective that's wacky relative to the viewer's ability to compare that to what is actually happening. And I just double click in here and apply it. Over on this side, making sure that I'm on this layer that has the pixels, same thing. I'm just going to make a selection right here, same exact technique, Command J on a Mac, Control J on a PC, Edit, Transform, Scale, and then I'm going to push this in, something like that. And then I'm just going to go to C for the crop tool, crop away the extra canvas over here, and come in and crop to the line here. Didn't get quite to the edge there, but that's fine. And then enter the crop, and now I have this different relationship and different perspective in terms of the smoke being a leading line that comes in and foreshortening an area of the image. And in a lot of respects it's just quiet. It's just sort of a place to move around to come back to the main subject in the image. Here's the final that I came up with the first time around, so that we can go back and forth one more time. Let's go here, and I am going to just back myself out of these states and get back to the raw capture, and click right here. This was our before, this was our after. Would love to hear your feedback about the video today. Any questions that you might have. I want to say a huge thank you to Guitar Bob for being my friend, and for being so great in terms of collaborating with me on creative photography projects. And we also every once in a while get to play some music together, which is awesome. And I want to say a huge thank you to you for being here. I hope to see you again real soon in the Mindful Eye.